When we left off, everyone on Cold Station 12 had their lives in the hands of Jonathan Archer. Poor fools. So Archer is talked through the fiddling that needs doing, eventually sealing off the room where everyone else is so that they won't die horribly. But that leaves Archer in his tunnel then. Which ends the teaser. Quick and effective, just the way they should be. After the titles, Archer calls up Enterprise to say, hey, now would be a great time to use the transporter, 'cause I'm gonna die horribly. But he's too close to the core for a safe lock. And lest we forget, this is the same thing that once got persnickety in a storm and beamed up a guy full of leaves and twigs. Giving the thing a paint job doesn't make it any more safe. So he says, okay, blast the door at the top of the shaft and then blow me out into space, and then you can beam me back. I give this to the new Archer. He may still have a jaw that was made to be punched, but he's stepping up his game as far as crazy plans go. Back on the Klingon ship, Malik breaks the news to Sung about him killing Archer. He just mentions him, though. Let's not hit him with the mass murder all at once. He's cheesed off enough over a guy who barely had a name. But while Sung is understandably annoyed with Malik's behavior of late, Malik is clearly chafing under his adopted father's leadership, especially treating him in a way that Malik obviously thinks is beneath him. The last thing that an arrogant murderer wants is to be talked down to by anybody. I've read enough comic books to know that's true. Anyway, he's planning to lead them to a place that he's nicknamed the Briar Patch, presumably the place from Insurrection. A place for them to hide from anyone else. He says he thinks there's at least 2 habitable planets in there, which means if they went ahead with this plan, they could have prevented Insurrection. Boy, I have never wished for the villains to win as much as I am right now. Sung thinks that this is a place where they can hide from everyone else, but Malik says that's a stupid plan. But his own isn't any better. He brings up the Botany Bay. Sung says records don't even show that that ship exists, and even if it did, the legend itself about the Botany Bay says that the ship is lost. Finding a ship that's been lost for more than a century isn't so easy. Space is kind of big. But Malik's plan isn't to find the Botany Bay. It's to learn from Khan's mistake of running away, that fighting is always the better choice. But Sung won't hear any of that. After all, the only way a fight is going to end is either with them all dead, which is bad, or the Augments repeating what happened the first time, which is also bad. Finding Khan would probably be a better plan, and really, that's only because this is so bad that this bad idea isn't so bad next to the other bad one. Even the bad plan says, that is one bad plan. Sung takes Malik aside to privately explain that he needs to stop challenging Sung and start trusting him. After all, Malik may be smart, but Sung has experience, both in hiding and in dealing with the authorities. You're not going to win a war just because you did great on your SAT. Malik also notices that Sung is manipulating the DNA of some of the embryos that they took, removing the high levels of aggression and violence that the 20th century scientists didn't understand. But Malik is convinced that bloodlust isn't a bug, it's a feature, and Sung has no right to tamper with the DNA of these embryos. But their debate is interrupted. Enterprise has altered its warp signature to appear like a Klingon ship to try to follow them, but the Augments see through the deception. Not that Enterprise was hiding all that hard.
Open it, champ. This is Captain Archer. Drop out of warp or we'll disable you.
Sounds pretty confident for a dead man.
Yeah, that sounds like Archer, doesn't it? He and everyone are lying dead and he's going, perfect. All part of the plan. Malik, try not to be too surprised, wants to fight, but Sung says they're no match in a straight fight. Instead, he takes the shuttle pilot they nabbed last episode, puts her back in her shuttle again, and drops it over a moon where her shuttle gets trapped in the atmosphere. It can't escape, and eventually it is going to sink. But for right now, it should be safe, long enough for them to rescue. But not through beaming out. Boy, transporters are all about what they can't do today, aren't they? A full-on rescue mission is going to take time. Time that she has, but not enough to do that and nab Sung and the Augments. So they have to let them go again. I guess it's all about what the Enterprise can't do today either. Malik tells Sung in private that it's obvious Starfleet isn't going to let them get away, but he has a plan. Before they left Cold Station 12, he beamed over a bunch of deadly biotoxin, and he wants to use it. Not against Enterprise, not even against the Earth, but against the Klingons. If they launch a bioweapon attack on a Klingon outpost at this time, the Klingons will presume that humanity as a whole is responsible and start a war. A war that would keep Starfleet so busy they might even have to resort to flying under the power of mushrooms. They'd be that desperate. The plan is admittedly sound and shows what it's like when decisions are made by someone who see things solely as problems to be solved, without any sense of ethics. By now it's clear that Malik's view is that their lives are the only lives that matter, and no degree of risk is acceptable for him. If there's even a 0.1% chance that they might be in danger, he'd annihilate an entire planet to erase that chance. Khan may have wanted to rule, but that ended in failure. If the Augments are the next step in human evolution, then that means they have to be the ones who survive. In private, Malik tells Persis that he's had enough and is taking over.
You've helped me before.
Oh, that was different. This is our father.
He may have raised us, but that doesn't make him our father. He'll never be one of us.
I don't know. Any person who can, alone, raise 19 children in the middle of nowhere seems like he's got some kind of superhuman abilities going on. Shit, I only had twins, and they never, not once, wanted to take over the universe. I don't know how he did it. Malik has the rest of the bridge crew on his side, but Persis is still resistant, only falling in with the others as a way to perhaps be in a position to help Sung. So while he is being hauled off by his own children for not being bloodthirsty enough, Archer has to deal with the Klingons. They've been noticed, and apparently some Klingon is bored enough to check out who's in the neighborhood. So Archer's going to have to bluff his way past.
No ship is allowed to pass through this system without authorization on the orders of Governor Clegg.
You have entered the domain of the powerful leader Clegg, and I demand to see your hall pass.
I don't take orders from a mere governor. We're on important business for the High Council.
Have I mentioned that I wish they'd kicked Archer upstairs and gotten a new captain? Because I can't watch this and not really wish that they had. The Klingons finally leave rather than listen to any more of that, leaving Enterprise free to try to stop the Augments. Sung's already working on that and hoping for Persis' help. She is willing to. She remains loyal to Sung. She's just more loyal to not getting stabbed by Malik. He knows that Malik's plan may start a war, but it will also cement forever a zero-tolerance policy on genetic augmentation, and they'll likely all be hunted down and killed. But there's no way to sabotage the weapons. Malik has loyal followers defending them, so Persis helps Sung to an escape pod. And that means...
Captain.
I suppose you had to stop and collect all those Oscar awards from the Klingons. Shut up! 4 Emmy nominations for Quantum Leap, and now you're being outacted by Jeff Foxworthy and a creature with so much silicon in her she meets the legal definition of cyborg. Sad. Sung tries to explain things to Archer, but Archer thinks that Sung might have done this so that the Augments could get away while he led Enterprise the wrong way. When Sung confesses that he knew nothing about the biotoxins being taken, that Malik is out of control and has to be stopped, Archer starts to believe him. Although he says it's a little disappointing that the great Dr. Sung wouldn't believe Malik was a killer until he saw him actually kill someone with his own eyes. There was a bit of willful blindness there. I mean, when your son kills his brother and you put it down to discipline problems, you've got a mistake in your parenting. Instead, Malik is, even now, questioning Persis about Sung's escape, that it was impossible for him to get away without outside help, and that since the code to disable the sensors that allowed him to do that is known only to 4 people, and that she was the only one who wasn't on the bridge, besides him, and even with his problems, he'd probably know if he did it, that means that she's the only one left. Sung probably left board games. I'm sure they played Clue a few times. She pulls a knife, knowing his tendency to kill whenever threatened, or cornered, or horny, or just whenever, but her strike fails to kill him, so he turns the tables and stabs her instead, and then plants a big wet one on her, because the only thing better than making out with your sister is making out with your sister while she's dying. Meanwhile, Sung is doing his best to help, but they soon run into another Klingon ship, so they figure, let's try that trick again.
Earth vessel, surrender, and prepare to be boarded.
All right, not a good start for my bluff, but I can wing this.
Our plating is failing.
Well, let's just put this one down as a learning experience. Sung tries pleading for them in Klingon, but suggesting to let them go because they're honorable people purely on his say-so is somehow not convincing. So Archer turns off weapons to make it look like they're surrendering, but when the Klingons pull alongside to board, they shoot the nacelle with the grappler, damaging it enough to disable their warp ability so that Enterprise can get away. But they're going to need to hurry, because Malik has already found his torpedo and is getting ready to fire. Strike that. Enterprise arrives to see their failure, but they try the Hail Mary and fire a bunch of torpedoes after the other torpedo in the hopes that they'll beat it up and take its lunch money. This works, but the distraction allows Malik to shoot them.
Direct hit to the armory. We've lost hull plating.
What? Okay. Well, where were you when you last remember having your hull plating? Then maybe we can remember where you might have left it. Reed recommends targeting the bridge to eliminate the command threat, but Sung intervenes. Not specifically to save the Augments, but because that plan isn't going to work. He suggests another target which should disable them, eliminating the threat without killing them. Well, not all of them anyway. Some do die, and Malik is cheesed off over that and decides to do a Khan homage and blow them all up. Sung tries pleading with Malik to stop. By doing this, he's ending the Augments forever. All the embryos are going to be lost with the ship, remember. But Malik decides that self-destruct is the better part of valor, and the ship is lost. And with that, Dude, you're ruining the epilogue! Malik tries killing Sung, but Archer guns him down. Good stuff. This is a lot easier than that punching thing. I have to remember this for next time. So, now that we can get on with the epilogue without any further interruptions, Archer says it's all good with the Klingons now, and Sung learns that all the stuff about destroying his work was just an attempt to get under his skin. Everything has actually been stored away, perhaps for a day when it can be used safely. But Sung is a bit disillusioned about perfecting the species genetically. He's thinking, maybe cybernetics are a better option. Maybe robots would even be a better choice. Though it might take generations for the work to be completed. No problem, he's got lots of Oh, right. The post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to Pierce, who joins Starfleet to boldly go in his pants. Final score for the Augments trilogy episodes are 7 for Borderland, 9 for Cold Station 12, and 8 for the Augments. Now, I have to say that the overall story is a bit weaker than I would have preferred. Malik himself is not a particularly great villain, but it's got a good concept and Spiner's winning performance, which helps to elevate this and ensure that this new era of the show is getting off on the right foot. Much of Borderland is filler, elevated only by the interplay between Sung and Archer, while Cold Station 12 really got things moving with a complex dynamic and the true threat that the Augments can present. But sadly, things were a bit weaker when we got into the final chapter. Nevertheless, even when there's room for improvement, the fact is this trilogy is an improvement. I may joke about Archer because it amuses me, but he is far more effective and less insufferable of a leader this time. And while I didn't delve into it, the material with DePaul and Tucker shows how effective it is to take two characters that weren't working and forge a dynamic between them to give them room for new dimensions to replace their old annoying habits. Watching this, I'm all the more convinced that this should have been the launch of a new series with a new captain. Or at the very least, it should have been their version of Way of the Warrior. Establish a new status quo for the show. Because a lot of what Archer does seems like it easily translates into a new leader trying to prove themselves, instead of being the guy who is celebrated as saving the human race. A condensed version of this trilogy is a 2-part movie with a new captain, with guest star Brent Spiner, that would have gotten a lot more positive buzz than what we did have kicking off Season 4. In fact, the more I think about it, you could even get away with having the cliffhanger ending of the previous season and still do this. Imagine the pilot movie starts with the ending in the tent. The space Nazi appears and then Archer wakes up. But no, it's not a cheap, that was all just a dream thing. When he looks in the mirror, he has a quick flashback montage of something else involving those aliens. So, we understand that something is haunting him from what happened there, but we don't know what it was. He finishes getting dressed. He grabs his cane and limps out, permanently wounded by whatever happened there. We see that Archer's been kicked upstairs because something has happened to him. He can't captain anymore, physically and possibly even emotionally. That's why another captain needs to take over. He's not being written out of the show, though. This would then accomplish 3 things at the same time. 1, it would inject a new captain in order to shake up the dynamic of the show. 2, it would allow a chance for a complex relationship then between Archer and this new captain. On the one hand, working in tandem, but also friction there at times because the captain's work out there could undermine Archer's long-term goals for a federation, while the Cap is annoyed at the second guessing from someone who's safe behind a desk. And 3, you can have a low-boil subplot about what happened to Archer and Enterprise between the end of Season 3 and the start of Season 4. You don't have to give an answer right away. You can offer a couple of subtle, mysterious hints to it. Tell people that there was something important, and then eventually everything happened. The full ramifications of all of that. Tease people along a little bit and then give them the answer. Mystery, novelty, fan lore, a shakeup, and Brent Spiner. That's how you start the season. Or you can start it with time-traveling space Nazis.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
How long can we sustain Warp 5?
As long as the captain wants it, or until we blow up, whichever comes first.